Joining us now to discuss the fragile peace process is NTD News contributor Mike Leon, who's host of the podcast Can We Please Talk? Also with us is political analyst Gerard Filitti, who is a senior counsel with the Lawfare Project. Gentlemen, thank you for joining this morning. Mike, on Friday, President Trump called it a historic day when Hamas agreed to release all the hostages, and he was cautiously optimistic in that video statement. Now, though, on Sunday, and he's been warning that there'll be massive bloodshed if Hamas plays games. So will this time be different in dealing with Hamas?
Yeah, good question, Kerry. Good morning to all of you. Funny enough, Jake Tapper is on my latest episode, Can We Please Talk? I actually recorded with him as he was texting with the president in this text exchange that he played yesterday on State of the Union and asking him these different questions. So very ironic, was not planned. But it was one of the questions I asked Jake in the follow-up was, what do you think here in terms of will this actually get negotiated? So let's just start at the high level here. First off, this 20-point plan that came out on Friday, Kerry, we read it on the show. And one of the things that was very interesting to me is first, as been mentioned in the package that played, hostages release, right, on both sides of this, and specifically the 48 hostages still remaining outstanding, and obviously some freeing of some Gazas. I think that's great, and that's already been agreed upon. I know Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that on NBC News yesterday. But I think the second part of this is where the real negotiation phase is going to come in here, Kerry. And I know the president is making threatening words in that Truth Social post, but I hope that cooler heads obviously prevail with respect to the peace talks that are going to happen, because the second part of this is how do you get Hamas out of the region, and this ISF and creating this force that will patrol Gaza and control Gaza, and then we can figure out governmentally what takes place there in the region. But that's going to be the biggest sticking point in all of this. I'm glad to see that there will be hostages released out of all of this. I know the president posted that on Truth Social, didn't necessarily say that. He did say it in text to Jake Tapper, but I think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel in all of this, no pun intended.
Yeah, and Gerard, as Mike's alluding to, Hamas has frequently been very challenging to do any kind of negotiating. And of course, the adage is you don't negotiate with terrorists. More hawkish voice like Lindsey Graham and many inside Israel, they're terming Hamas's statement on Friday as not an acceptance of the 20-point Trump plan, but saying it's a yes, but. What are your thoughts?
They're absolutely right. It's a yes, but the same as we've seen for the last 2 years. Look, the fact is we've been here before. We've seen negotiations that have successfully led to the release of hostages before during the past 2 years. But all of those discussions, all of those ceasefires have broken down. And here we have the same impediments. We have one of the conditions for this to be effective is that Hamas must disarm. The other condition is that Hamas cannot be involved in post-war governance. These are the sticking points for Hamas. These are things that Hamas has not, cannot, and will not agree to. So for as long as Hamas remains in power, they have no incentive to finalize a deal, because a deal would mean them giving up power and not being involved in post-war governance. So unfortunately, we've been here before. Hamas is saying that it's willing to negotiate, and they are negotiating. The question is whether they're doing so in good faith, and whether we can finally resolve the dissolution of Hamas and the end of their involvement in Gaza. That's what it would take to win this war, not just the release of hostages.
Yeah, to your point, if someone doesn't fear death, it's hard to negotiate with them over the threat of their elimination. Mike, is it likely that Hamas even gives up the hostages? Because it seems like that is their main point of leverage at this, and has been all along.
Well, I think, and again, I go back to the 20-point plan and that's why I kind of mentioned it in terms of the release of hostages on both sides of this, in terms of those that are Gazans that will be released to this. I think Hamas will, and again, I'm going by what Marco Rubio said and what others within government roles have said, that they've agreed to that sticking point. It's all about now location, who actually does the pickup and transfer. Obviously, military operations have to stop in that area if there was going to be some type of prisoner exchange. I think, like Gerard said, that's the easiest part of this, which is unfortunately, I hate to even say it like that, Kerry. That's the easiest part of this, the hostage stage. The harder part is really about Hamas and the future of Hamas. And Hamas knows that any sticking point of them, vacating the region, not being involved in government or policy or anything like that, is going to be something that they're never going to sign off on. So now the question really becomes, after the prisoner exchanges, what becomes of that sticking point? Because that sticking point is why we're still here at 2 years. Benjamin Netanyahu has said it vociferously different times. He said eradicate Hamas, which is tough in and of itself. But then he's also said Hamas cannot be in the region and cannot control it anymore. We can't look to, what's in the West Bank. We have to look at something different. This is why this 20-point plan kind of creates this ISF as a temporary measure. And then it figures out in the future talks of what it looks like from a governmental perspective in Gaza. That's a huge sticking point. I don't know how you negotiate that, Kerry, just to finish on a bow with what you just said. They don't fear death. So how do you negotiate with that? This episode of Can We Please Talk is presented by our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee since 2009. They've been our proud sponsor. You see the promo code there. Look at this. They sent me this beautiful kit right here. Listen to that. Listen to that seal coming out, right? What's in it? Environmentally safe, compostable K-Pods. I love the dark Mexican blend. You can go to their website right now, take the quiz. That quiz is going to put you with a flavor profile. Listen to that sound of the coffee that you're going to be matched up with. Go to freshroastedcoffee.com. Click the link right now in our show notes. You can see it right there. Click that link. It's going to take you to the site. When you get to checkout, use our promo code, Can We Please Get 20? All one word, Can We Please Get 20, 20. You're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com, our official sponsor of the Can We Please Talk podcast.
And just to kind of recap kind of how we've gotten to this point, of course, the second stage gate doesn't really matter if the hostages are not returned, and any celebration of that alone, which people are on the streets celebrating already, would be premature. But Witkoff pulled his team out and said there's no negotiating with Hamas. They're not serious. Then Israel went in very vigorously into Gaza. So, Gerard, in your view, what was, if there's a single breaking point, what was it that has brought them back to the table? Why are we here now?
I think the acceleration of the involvement of President Trump, ironically, has helped bring them to the table, and Israel's bombing of attempted assassination in Qatar. I think what's different now is that Trump's plan has significant buy-in from the Arab world, from different countries in the Gulf, all of whom would be involved in post-war reconstruction. And they're all, quite frankly, tired of this war. They're tired of Hamas. They don't want the risk of attacks on their countries for harboring these terrorist leaders. And there is increasing pressure from the Gulf states on Hamas to cut a deal to end this conflict. I think that's the major point here, that this plan actually puts forward a realistic way for Gaza to be reconstructed, redeveloped, and ruled autonomously by Palestinians in the post-war period. And that's getting Gulf buy-in. That's putting pressure on Hamas. And whether or not that's ultimately effective remains to be seen. But that's what's changed here. It's Trump's personal involvement, the attack on Qatar. These things have actually pushed the Arab countries to supporting a quicker end to this resolution, to this conflict.
And Mike, as Gerard brings up Qatar, how crucial was Trump's trip to Doha, which, Qatar has been widely seen as the artery by which Hamas then is able to operate outside of its Gaza confines. So how important was Trump's, building rapport and relations and investment from Doha?
Well, as you've seen, Kerry, in his first administration with the Abraham Accords, the relationship he has with Saudi Arabia and MBS, like he has tried to build these bridges and build these relationships. I will give him credit. I said it yesterday on the show. There's a lot of other pundits that won't give him credit because they don't ideology-wise align with the president. But if he does something good, you have to give somebody credit. And in this, to piggyback on what Gerard said, this 20-point plan, there's a line in here that Israel will not occupy Gaza. For anybody, and again, I have my niece is Palestinian. For anybody that's Palestinian that has read that line, that Gazans can go back, freely can go back, and Israel will not occupy Gaza. I mean, those are huge things that have not been written out in paper form for a while, Kerry. So to see that, you have to give somebody credit for doing that. Well, who's the person that you give credit for, right? It's the commander-in-chief. It's the president of the United States currently, and that's Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of pundits that won't do that. I will do that this morning. But also, to Gerard's point, we've got to negotiate with this terrorist organization, as noted by all Western countries. So that's going to be the harder part. But I think to your broader point, Kerry, when he went on this trip, obviously the first issue that's going to be talked about outside of economic factors and things like that is going to be the war in Gaza and how do we bring this down. And to Gerard's other point, the other Arab countries in the area, Egypt, Jordan, they've all like that's enough. Like, when can we put this conflict to bed? And I think his involvement in all of this, him getting folks to the negotiating table, and then coming up with this 20-point plan that truly, truly secures the future for Gazans out there without Israel is control and interference. I don't have any other words for it today, so don't take the words that I'm using with the tone. But taking that out of the equation, I think President Trump has to get a lot of credit for this, like Gerard said.
And Gerard, just as we finish up, the two things I want to get your views on is the venue not being Qatar, being Egypt, the first country to normalize relations with Israel, as well as the involvement of the Palestinian Authority, who Netanyahu accuses of incenting families who have family members who commit terror.
Well, that is a fair criticism of the Palestinian Authority, the so-called pay-for-sleep policy. But at the end of the day, the Palestinian Authority is the representative of the Palestinian people. They are the ones who have most frequently been elected to be their representatives, and they are the voice of reason in the room that's crowded by terrorist organizations that commit atrocious attacks. The use of Egypt is significant in another way as well. It's that border, that land crossing into Gaza, that way that they're very significantly involved in here, because Egypt doesn't want terrorist attacks either. They don't want Hamas operating within Egypt. They don't want the illegal smuggling of weapons into Gaza. So they're very much involved in this, and them at the table sends the message that this is a very serious plan that Hamas needs to take seriously. At the end of the day, the suggestion here may also be what happened with the PLO, which is if they have the recognition, if people in Hamas, if Hamas members recognize the existence of the State of Israel, accept the existence of the State of Israel, and promise to lay down arms, even if they don't do so right now, that may be the pathway forward to the next stage of the deal. So I think that's what we may see coming out of Egypt today.
Gentlemen, appreciate your analysis this morning. Gerard Filitti, Mike Leon, thank you.
Hey, everybody, Mike Leon from the Can We Please Talk podcast. Thank you so much for watching this clip. Do me a favor, hit subscribe. Going to get more content from us over at Can We Please Talk.